Their meager belongings, their faces alight with a fragile, trembling optimism, and the lie he had to live became a suffocating burden, a secret that threatened to consume him whole. The journey began in the late autumn of 1825, when the land itself seemed to be exhaling before the long grip of winter. A procession of human misery and carefully cultivated false hope wound its way westward from Maryland, a slow-moving river of wagons, chains, and weary footsteps. Josiah, astride a sturdy, dependable horse, led the caravan forward. Around him stretched a long, shuffling line of enslaved men, women, and children, their bodies bent beneath exhaustion, their faces etched with weariness and a fragile, desperate optimism that flickered like a candle in a drafty room. The air was crisp, carrying the sharp scent of burning leaves and damp earth, the distant promise of snow lingering on the horizon. But for Josiah, the air felt thick and heavy, weighted with the knowledge he carried alone. He was their guide, their protector, their trusted leader, the man Riley had placed in charge of this human cargo. And yet, behind his steady gaze and measured commands, he knew he was leading them toward a precipice from which there would be no easy return. The route was long and unforgiving, cutting through the rugged terrain of western Maryland, climbing steadily into the Allegheny Mountains, and then descending toward the rolling hills of Kentucky. Each day tested endurance to its limits. Josiah pushed them onward relentlessly, not out of cruelty, but necessity. He had to maintain the illusion of purpose and control, to ensure they arrived on schedule, all while his mind raced endlessly, searching for some unseen path that could avert the disaster he knew awaited them. Days blurred together into a monotonous rhythm of suffering. Dawn broke with the bite of mountain air, pale mist clinging to trees like ghostly shrouds. Josiah would rise before the others, surveying the camp, steadying himself before rousing the group with a voice that was firm but never unkind. Wagons creaked and groaned as they were loaded, livestock shifted and snorted, and the shuffling feet of the enslaved kicked up clouds of dust that coated skin and clothing in a fine, gritty film. Meals were sparse and joyless, cornmeal and salted pork cooked over open fires, the smoke stinging tired eyes. Nights were spent huddled together beneath a vast, indifferent canopy of stars, the sounds of the wilderness pressing in from all sides. The hoot of an owl, the rustle of unseen animals, the crack of distant branches snapping in the dark all served as constant reminders of their vulnerability. Along the way, they encountered others on the road. White settlers heading westward with wagons full of possessions and faces filled with hope that felt cruelly ironic to those bound in chains. Occasionally, they crossed paths with slave catchers, their sharp, predatory eyes lingering too long on the group as they scrutinized Josiah's papers with suspicion. Once, they passed a small band of Native Americans, their silent, watchful presence a stark reminder of another people dispossessed, another story of loss woven into the same land. Each encounter tightened the knot in Josiah's chest. Every question posed to him was a potential unraveling of the carefully constructed facade he wore. He answered with practiced ease, presenting himself as the loyal, efficient overseer Riley expected him to be, even as his heart pounded violently against his ribs. One incident etched itself indelibly into his memory. Deep in the mountains, where the path narrowed into a treacherous ribbon of stone and mud, a young woman named Ruth collapsed. Ill and utterly spent, she crumpled to the ground, her infant, a tiny, wailing bundle, lying helplessly beside her. The procession halted, anxiety rippling through the group. Josiah knew delays were dangerous. Riley's instructions had been explicit: maintain pace, avoid attention. Yet leaving Ruth behind meant certain death or recapture. He looked into the faces around him, fearful, pleading, clinging to the last threads of trust they had placed in him. He thought of Charlotte, of his own children. He made his decision. Ordering two of the stronger men, Jacob and Daniel, a younger, quieter man, to fashion a makeshift litter, Josiah personally helped carry Ruth and her child. The choice slowed their progress and risked Riley's wrath, but he could not abandon them. The act was small in the grand scope of suffering, but it was a silent rebellion, a flicker of defiance against the cold logic of his master's orders. It earned him quiet gratitude and a renewed, fragile trust, even as the weight of his secret grew heavier. That weight never eased. He watched children play along the road, their innocent laughter echoing through valleys, and nausea would rise in his throat. He listened to adults speak of Kentucky with cautious hope, small gardens, sturdier cabins, a life marginally less brutal, and he forced himself to smile, to offer encouragement, knowing the bitter truth. At night, staring into flickering campfires, he replayed Riley's letter in his mind, searching for loopholes that did not exist. He considered escape countless times. He knew the land, the routes, the risks. But the faces of those who trusted him held him in place. He had led them this far. Could he abandon them now? Weeks passed. The journey became a crucible, forging resolve even as it chipped away at his soul. Josiah learned to lie with conviction, to project unwavering loyalty while secretly plotting defiance. He became a man divided, bearing a duality that threatened to crush him with every passing mile. Arrival in Daviess County, Kentucky, brought exhaustion mixed with cautious optimism. The new farm, smaller and rougher than Riley's Maryland estate, offered temporary relief from the road. The enslaved people set to work clearing land, building cabins, planting crops. Their spirits lifted, fragile hope blooming once more. Josiah saw only the truth behind the facade. Riley's prolonged absence was a warning sign. In his place stood Mr. Finch, a cold, calculating agent whose eyes held no warmth. Finch treated Josiah with grudging respect but watched him carefully, suspicion always simmering beneath the surface. Subtle signs of betrayal accumulated. Promised tools never arrived. Rations deteriorated. Most damning were the inspections, Finch lining people up, examining teeth, muscles, health, making notes like a livestock buyer. Josiah felt dread seep into his bones. Feigning illness one evening, he slipped into Finch's office and found the letters. Plans to sell excess stock. Names listed. Families he had led across mountains. His own family spared, for now. The clock was ticking. The sale came brutally, families torn apart in a yard filled with screams and despair. Josiah stood rigid, the trusted overseer, his soul screaming as children were ripped from mother's arms. When he saw traitors inspect his own children, the choice he had long dreaded crystallized. He could not save everyone. That night, he chose his family. Under moonless darkness, Josiah led Charlotte and their 6 children into the woods. Every step carried terror. Every sound threatened discovery. Guided by stars and instinct, they fled into the unknown, leaving behind suffering that would haunt him forever. Weeks of flight followed, hunger, fear, relentless pursuit, until they crossed into Canada. Freedom came not with triumph, but exhausted relief and enduring guilt. In Canada, Josiah built a new life, founded the Dawn Settlement, and helped others escape. He became a voice against slavery, a conductor on the Underground Railroad. Yet the ghosts of Kentucky never left him. In his autobiography, he sanitized his story, shaping himself into a symbol. Harriet Beecher Stowe would transform him into Uncle Tom, erasing the moral complexity that defined his life. Josiah Henson lived as a survivor who made impossible choices in an impossible system. His true legacy lies not in the simplified myth, but in the unresolved, haunting truth of what survival sometimes demands.